Reactor online. Sensors online. Weapons online. All systems nominal.
Hello and welcome to today's Battle Mech review. Today we're going to be looking at the Berserker, which is one of my favorite hatchet mech. Well, really, if you have to look at it, there's this one and there's the Neanderthal, which I think are top tier, while all the other hatchet mech go in between mid to probably should not be investing in them. There's a bit of an issue with having close combat weapon on the mech that is meant to be shooting at long range. And, well, most battles are not going to be resolved in close quarters until things get really nasty. And that's where things like the Berserker or the Neanderthal really work really fine. It's fun here. I had a few people provide me with the pictures of Berserkers that didn't come from my shop for this time, which is pretty nice. It doesn't happen all the time. And, well, the term Berserker has been around for a long time as well. So it's fun to discuss that as well with some people showing up. But in this case, we're actually not going to go over the history of the hatchet mechs once again. We're going to talk about something else before we get in the thick of it with the Berserker. Before we go down and do any other roads here, we're going to say that the Berserker is far more than just a mech with a hatchet. It is really a mech in a category of its own. Well, there's very few mechs in that category, in my mind at least. You have quite a few cavalry mechs out there, your classic 275 Mafia, and just about anything that goes decently fast and can jump. You've got a decent number of trooper mechs out there, especially things like Thunderbolts that are common all over the place, and your standard fire support like the Bombardier or the good old Archer. But the Berserker really lives in a particular category, which is the psychological warfare mech. While it can perform role as a siege breaker, basically allowing you to either break a siege or to break into a siege, the real thing this beast is really able to do is that it scares the living hell out of just about anybody that sees it. You might have the upper hand in a fight and a large number of people floating around and feeling that you've got everything under control. But once a Berserker gets its axe within range, you basically lose all composure and generally lose a limb or two. To be honest, there's quite a few different assault mechs in this category or that want to be built into this category or anything like that, but the Berserker is basically the best one for the job. I would say the Atlas was originally built that way with that skull face of his, but really, it's not as scary as a Berserker in the end. Commanders will often ignore other machines on the battlefield to make sure that the Berserker is contained and just to make sure that it is far away from their own commanders, because one bad move and you start losing entire mech to a very angry giant with a very big club. Another thing that makes the Berserker quite nice here is that it has instant bursts of speed when required, and you can't always expect it to stay at range fairly easily, especially if it has buddies helping them, basically funneling you into a position where the Berserker can just say, okay, I'm going full speed using my mask, and it'll get right next to you and just club you over the head, which is actually pretty easy to do. If you look at things here, I would say both mechs designed by Alexander Kerensky, both the Atlas and the King Crab, kind of file into this particular category, and I would say still the Atlas was the standard 100-ton mech of the Succession War. Well, it did succeed at that in that particular category for long enough. The first one I can think of, though, if I look at historical records, I mean, the Mackie itself would be quite a scary thing, but once everybody had Battle Mech, it wouldn't be as bad. But really, the Pillager from 2575 had a pair of AC-20s, a really bad attitude, and a look to match. And it really could turn into a sniper later on when they stuck Gauss rifles on it. Not my favorite type of upgrade. Strangely enough, I think the Pillager is more aggressive if it has those AC-20s, and I think Aus Liao kind of agrees with me with one of their newer model using LB-20Xs in the side torsos. A decent enough mech, the Pillager on its own, and I would say here, if you bring it as a psychological warfare weapon, well, people will have to stay at range of it because they don't want to just get punched in by those big guns. There's also a few variants of the Kintaro that I would actually say fall into this category, strangely enough. If you're a medium mech and you have a Kintaro showing up and it's the one with the large laser, it is quite scary because it is able to take you out fairly quickly, it is fast, fast, it is able to get in close quarters and beat the heck out of you with kicks and punch. So, I mean, it works as well. In lighter mechs, I mean, you won't be scaring larger mechs with it, but if it's just a group of a bunch of little small mechs, things like the Valiant or even the Panther can be a bit of a psychological warfare kind of weapon because, well, the Panther's really tough. It's got very good range. It's decently mobile. So, I mean, any mech can turn into a psychological warfare weapon if required, but there's just some of them that are a little bit better at it. The thing is, with a lot of those inner sphere machines here, you have a lot of inner sphere pilots that are going to be quite afraid of them because they don't want to lose their machine or they want to survive to see the next day. And especially when those machines are basically their meal ticket or a thing that they've been given by their father and their father's father and their father's father's fathers, etc. But what happens when you fight against people who are proud to fall in battle? And even in some cases, really love to die in battle. Well, that's a problem when you're fighting the clans because they live quite differently than most of us do here in how they behave in battle. Anybody over the age of 35, if they don't have a blood name, will be like, oh yes, I can finally die. Come on, Berserker, come close to me and I will fight you with my Kit Fox and then die catastrophically. But I mean, they're very happy for that to happen. The thing is, they are still human deep down inside, however. They are not killing machines born and bred, even though that's what they want to be. A lot of training and a lot of drilling will bring you closer to being, well, not completely fearless, but not going to deal with fear the same way as other things. But the clan warriors, when a berserker shows up next to you and swings that hatchet down and you see your right arm just fly off, even if you are going to be proud to die in battle, you are not going to want to die because that's an horrible way to die. I mean, being shot at is pretty nasty, but a lot of pilots don't realize just how it feels to be really getting into physical combat and in really with the physical assault of a really big club going down. Another thing that needs to be brought up is that the clans were basically told a whole lot of cool stories about mechs with hatchets that promoted heroism and great courage. Kailar Liao basically destroyed an entire galaxy or cluster or whatever. I mean, is that story really true? I am not quite sure. We will never really be sure as long as we don't have a full video recording of the whole thing, and I've never seen one personally. But the thing is, they were told that a mech with a hatchet basically stopped an entire army of clan mechs in a canyon, and that was enough to make them afraid of Hatchet Man and Axeman when Adam Steiner started causing issues with his own. So there's a lot of stories with mech with hatchets that made the clan warrior starts to regret not putting hatchets on their own mechs, which is why you now see talons on some Jade Falcon machine. Now, for the people who haven't been following all of the videos, well, let's just go quickly over the history of Defiance and Team Banzai. And they've been building a variety of hatchet mechs since the 3020s here, starting with the Hatchet Man in 3023, which was, well, very functional in its role of hunting down Vindicators and Panthers. And then later on in 3048, they had to follow up with the Axeman, which was, well, somewhat effective with its AC-20 when the ammo loads were actually getting into the gun, which was a pretty big issue. They made the Axeman 2N later on with a pair of LRM-15, and that one was quite successful. I would say a fire support machine that when you get close, you get clubbed over the head, works fairly well. I mean, that's basically what I do with my archer, and I don't have any hatchet or anything. I just punch you into oblivion. But I mean, it works fairly well. The one that actually tipped the scales a little bit was the 3053 Night Sky, which was a little bit more mobile, actually quite a bit more mobile than the two previous one, and it showed that close combat mechs should, you know, probably be faster than the speed of a regular heavy or assault mech. But it still lacked the one-time stopping power that larger mechs would probably have wanted. If the Night Sky had been around 60 tons, 60 tons is just heavy enough that a hatchet blow will take off another mech's head in a single shot. Well, most mech's head, not the ones with hardened armor, and there's mechs with less armor on the head than usual, but, you know, generally a 60-ton mech with a hatchet will be able to decapitate another one. The Night Sky is just a little bit too light for that. The Hatchet Man is much too light, and the Axeman, well, is heavy enough that it's going to be able to do that when required. The Berserker was built using the knowledge that was taken from the other Team Banzai mechs and combined it with the knowledge that the various powers gained from the clan invasion. They decided that a 100-tonner mech with a hatchet could easily crush just about any small mech in a single blow, and it would easily cripple heavier one in a good single crunch. A lot of clan mechs are not terribly well armored, at least not at the early phases of the clan invasion. You will see the modernization of the clan war machine to things that have more armor later on as well, because the fights that they were ready to do was very different than what the Inner Sphere were wanting to do as well. It was really in the Slayer's arena that this concept was tested and brought forward, and you had a whole lot of the various banshees, atlases, and other things that had hatchets, swords, clubs, maces, chain whips, all sorts of things just to test how good a melee weapon could be on a very big mech. Reaching the front, the Berserker made a mark really quickly, generally in the form of a smoking crater of whatever clan mech or, Liao or Merrick mech that it got in front of. Clan warriors did not really like melee weapon all that much and melee combat at all, but they learned quickly that the Inner Spheres knew how to maximize it and knew how to use it. Other spheroid powers disliked facing the Berserker because, well, they realized fairly quickly it was just not another toy the Fedcoms had built using advanced technology just for fun. This thing was an actual threat. At 100 tons, the Berserker is built around the massive LTV 400 XL, which was mainly used in modern chargers at the time. The Draconis Combine was the biggest importer of that 400 XL engine. There were a few others that were being shipped around. There's a few clan mechs that would use something kind of similar, but it's not a common engine to begin with, which is a bit strange, thinking that it's the biggest engine that you would normally mount on a battle mech, but, that's just how it is. It gives you a basic top speed of 65 kilometers per hour, which is quite fast on 100-ton mechs, but you have a mask tied to the musculature as well, giving you a top speed of 86 kilometers per hour in short bursts, which is quite reasonable. You're basically going to be able to catch up with a Timberwolf if required, and, a Timberwolf doesn't like having a Berserker next to it swinging that massive hatchet. The engine compartment is filled to the brim with 16 double heat sinks, giving you decent enough heat control. And you save a little bit more weight using an endo steel chassis for the skeleton. And 18.5 tons of standard plate is almost a maximum you can have on a 100-ton mech, which means you're going to be able to stay in the fight for a decently long amount of time. You don't have any ammos that can blow up either, so that's another big advantage. But I mean, some people are going to say, well, it's an Inner Sphere XL engine, so if you lose a side torso, you're dead. At that point, if you lose a side torso on a Berserker, the machine's gone anyways, because you'll either have lost your hatchet or, lost everything else. For additional protection, you get an anti-missile system, which is decent enough, and a Guardian ECM suite, which is quite nice and made this thing quite functional during the Jihad, where, ECMs were very, very important. The original Berserker was the BRZA3, which is probably the most common one of the lot that you will see floating around just about everywhere. Each arm packs a pretty big weapon, starting with the hatchet in the right arm, which is able to basically cripple whatever it's able to hit, decapitate just about every mech. Even a thing with hardened armor is not going to like getting it on the head with that hatchet. It'll probably leave a pretty big mark. And the other side, you've got an ERPPC, which is, quite a decent little gun as well. You will see a few left-handed A3s out there. Those are generally custom-made, inverting the weapons. Some pilots are just more at ease using the hatchet on the other arm. Sometimes it's just because they're left-handed to begin with. Sometimes it's just how they feel. It's a little custom thing that you might see every once in a while. To support this, you also have a pair of large pulse lasers on the shoulders, which is pretty darn good since this mech is meant to get into close quarter and just shoot everything. The nose also mounts a flamer, which means the A3 is also a menace against unarmored forces. All in all, look at all the weapons that are on there. You've got nothing with minimum ranges. You've got no weapons on the hatchet arm, so once you're next to someone, you just club down with the hatchet and keep shooting the large pulse lasers and maybe the ERPPC if you're so willing to overeat a little bit. and the other guy is going to regret it quite a bit. And, well, you're actually going to be decently accurate with those large pulse lasers, making this thing a true and complete menace within the short range or close quarter combat kind of range there. Defiance decided to start building a second model of the Berserker around the same time in 3056 with the BRZ-B3. The Axeman had gotten a bad reputation fairly quickly, being a close quarter mech that had an autocannon that kept jamming. So they did stick some LRMs on there and turned into a bombardment machine that could defend itself. The idea was pretty good on the Axeman, but once they decided to apply that to the Berserker, they replaced the large pulse lasers with a pair of 10 rack of LRM, which gives you some long range support, some bombardment, but you lose the ability to be, the most menacing thing ever in close quarters. It never really caught on because, unlike the AXM-2N, the Berserker A3 was darn good at what it was meant to do, and what it was meant to do is get up close, hit people with an hatchet, shoot them with large pulse lasers, and have the other guy regret it. Really, you are able to be a fire support machine in a Berserker B3, but it's not going to fit the role that you're meant to do, and if this had become the standard model of the Berserker, it probably would not be remembered or remembered well as a mech. The Berserker C3 came out at the end of the Fedcom Civil War and at the very start of the Jihad, and was built to newer specifications in order to make it a little bit more tough. It's not a bad idea. I mean, it's the thing that's going to get into close quarters, but it changes the equipment on it quite a bit. First off, the engine is replaced with an LTV 400 Light, which saves you less weight but increases the ability to stay in the fight longer. I mean, you lose a side torso, you're not completely crippled anymore. Not sure that's a huge selling point, but that's what they decided to go with. The large pulse lasers are removed and are actually replaced with 6 ER medium lasers split between the torsos. It technically gives you a better range and an ability to control your EAT a lot better by shooting just a few of them, most of them, or controlling what you're swinging and what you're shooting. The other big change, however, is the replacement of the mask system with triple strength myomer, allowing you to get a steady higher speed compared to the mask that you have to use in bursts, as long as you run decently hot, which, well, 6 ER medium lasers and an ER PPC should allow you to do. The other big change, though, is it actually doubles the damage power of the hatchet that is swung if you're running hot enough. If you think getting it by a 100-tonner hatchet on the head is bad, getting it by 100-tonner hatchet that is boosted by triple strength myomer, basically you can rip whatever part of whatever mech that's in front of you going forward, or you can even hit a dropship, and the amount of damage that you've dealt in that one spot will probably cripple it and prevent it from taking off ever again. There was then a decent enough lull in the production of the Berserker due to the fact that Defiance lost their factory to the word of Blake and such. But it came back with a brand new model in 3112, even though the previous models were still in general production. Mobility on this one is managed by a Clan 400XL engine, so it's the same size as your light engine, but saves you more weight. And this one is tied to triple strength myomer, like the C3 version was, and you get a full suite of jump jets as well, allowing you to jump 120 meters, which is one of the things that the Axeman and the Hatchetman had on top of the Berserker. They were able to jump. This one was not. Now, this is built into it, which is a decent enough tread, allow you to move a lot more reliably. The engine is tied to an armored compact gyro to give you maximum resilience, while the body is made of endo-composite materials instead of endo-steel to save a little bit on room, but still save on weight. The BRZ-D4 loses the anti-missile system, but upgraded its ECM suite to an Angel ECM, giving you a better range of ECM control and, well, just better ECM in general. Regular ECMs are going to be jammed by your own ECM, which is quite nice. The body is also protected with 21 tons of impact-resistant armor, which means that when you get into close-quarter fights, you're not going to get as hurt as the other guy. It's quite a weird type of armor. It's not terrible, but it does provide less protection per ton than a standard plate. Your secondary arm weapon is replaced with a bombast laser, which is certainly a choice to make for Defiance, and I would say it's definitely not a good one. Bombast lasers are very finicky, not very good. An ERPPC is straightforward and quite nice. Thankfully, you do keep 4 ER medium lasers on there, and they're the good clan kind generally because Defiance has the money to do that or the parts to do it, meaning that you are, well, quite a bit of a threat. You've got 4 large lasers mounted on there, but you're going to be less accurate than the guy with 2 large pulse lasers. So, all sorts of different trade-offs here. It's not a bad machine, except for that bombast laser. Your D4 Berserker did not quite meet expectations for a lot of commanders, especially people that were a little bit further away from Defiance space. One of the big problems was replacing that bombast laser was almost impossible, and, well, impact-resistant armor, unless you're on Solaris or any planet with a decent area circuit, is not going to be easy enough to find and source. Most people don't build it, and, well, it's not super popular. Defiance has recently introduced the E4 model to compensate for this, taking the same D4 basis there and somewhat complexifying it at the same time as simplifying it. There's a lot of weird things going on here. The impact-resistant armor is swapped out, and you get 19 tons of standard plates, which is quite reasonable. And your bombast laser is replaced with an insulated, improved heavy large laser. That's a really odd choice, and it tells you who Defiance actually wanted to sell these things to, which was Clan Wolf and our friends in Clan Jade Falcon. The side torso mounts an array of different weapons: an ER medium laser, an improved heavy medium laser, and an ER small laser, along with a machine gun against infantry. You've got a little bit of everything. It's meant to be used in all sorts of ways, and really, you look at it as a lot of clan gear on it. It tells you who it's meant to be sold for. And, well, Clan Wolf, Clan Jade Falcon, Clan Wolf in Exile, when they still existed, were quite happy to just buy a few of them under the radar and give them to the crazier member of their forces in order to just beat people over the head with hatchets. The original Berserker, along with the C3, are probably the ones that you should worry about. They're basically the ones that people actually bought and the people actually have available for sale. The D4 is very niche and not quite common, and the B3 is just an oddity that I don't think ever really delivered. Are melee weapons on mech really all that great? Well, it does give you a special effect and can easily scare people when they're on the right machines, just like the Berserker. When the Free Worlds League brought out the Neanderthal in 3128, we really started seeing another facet of these psychological warfare hatchet mechs, with the Neanderthal being, well, basically a scaled-down Berserker with M-pods and snub-nosed PPCs. It is quite a threat in many situations, and I think I'll do just a quick video on the Neanderthal when I have it available. I just haven't gotten my hand on the darn thing often enough to be able to give a good evaluation of it. So I thank everybody for watching. I hope you guys have a very nice rest of your day, and I will see you guys later. Bye-bye.